Both of the traditional major Canadian political parties, the Conservatives and Liberals, had new leaders in the federal parliamentary elections of December the 6th, 1921. But a third political force or party had emerged, the Western Canada-based agrarian, populist and pro-direct democracy Progressive Party, whose leader was Thomas Crerar. And the results were somewhat divisive and even inconclusive. A total of 235 members were elected to the Canadian House of Commons. The Liberals received the narrowest possible majority with 118 seats, receiving about 41.2% of the vote, or about 1,286,000. Women above a certain age, if they were Canadian citizens, were allowed to vote already in these elections. The Conservatives did receive about 936,000 votes, or 30% of the total, but only 49 seats, and Arthur Meehan lost his bid for re-election in the electoral district or riding of Portage-la Prairie. The Progressives received about 659,000 votes, or 21.1% of the total, and 58 seats, becoming thus the official opposition party. Meehan's tough law and order stance during the 1919 general strike in Winnipeg lost him votes, and also probably the sense that he didn't care about the sufferings of those Canadians who had to sacrifice a lot during the years of the First World War. Also, of course, because of the conscription crisis of 1917 that was still fresh in the minds of many voters, the Conservatives did poorly in Quebec. So let's look at the results in somewhat greater detail. Yes, 5 of the candidates in these Canadian federal parliamentary elections were women. Agnes MacPhail of the Progressive Party was elected as the first woman member of Parliament or member of the House of Commons in Canada. The voter turnout was only 67.7%. A total of 45 independent candidates ran in this election, receiving about 95,000 votes, or 3% of the total. 2 of them were elected. And then there were 2 United Farmers of Alberta candidates who were elected. They received a total of about 22,000 votes, or 0.7% of the total. 2 independent Conservatives receiving about 12,000 votes, or 0.4%. 1 was elected. 1 United Farmers of Ontario candidate who was elected, receiving about 3,900 votes, or 0.1%. 1 independent Progressive who was elected, receiving about 3,300 votes, or 0.1%. 9 politically unknown candidates receiving about 15,000 votes, or 0.5%. None were elected. 1 socialist candidate who wasn't elected, receiving about 3,100 votes, or 0.1%. 1 independent Liberal candidate who wasn't elected, receiving about 2,800 votes and wasn't elected. And then, yes, 28 Labour candidates were elected, were in the election, running in the election. 3 of them including their leader James Shaver Woodsworth, a former Methodist pastor who had decided to become a politician because he felt that the Methodist Church did not care significantly enough or passionately enough about social justice. He favored the so-called social gospel, which sought to establish righteous societies on the earth and emphasized social justice, at least to some extent, at the expense of the gospel of spiritual salvation. So 28 Labour candidates receiving a total of about 85,000 votes, or 2.7% of the total, and then 3 of them, including Mr. Woodsworth, were elected to the House of Commons.